Naveen Agnihotri, CEO and co-founder of Cumberland Labs. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Great to be here.
Excellent. Well, first, it's early morning for me, late night for you. You're over in Singapore. First, really quick, give me a nutshell. What is Cumberland Labs?
Cumberland Labs is a blockchain and Web3 incubator that is where we really work with early stage teams and we create our own products. The idea being we want to use blockchain and Web3 technologies to create companies that and projects that provide broad use across the ecosystem.
Awesome. Well, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is we're talking about AI, and I'm on this whole AI trip. With the release of like these pictures of, say, the Pope wearing Balenciaga, Elon wearing Balenciaga, Trump getting arrested, the spoofing of different people in music and videos and so on and so forth, the future of AI is now a lot different than I think a lot of people thought about. When we first thought about AI and what it looks like in the future, we're thinking Terminator. We're thinking about the singularity. We're thinking about this one machine to rule us all or to destroy us all. But now it seems as though the future seems a lot more human than we originally thought. What do you think the future of AI is going to be?
So, okay. First, that's a difficult question to answer because if you brought me back to 1990, which by the way I was around and I was starting with computers in 1990, if you ask me what is the future of computers going to look like, it's a difficult question to answer. That's point number one. Point number two is we can still actually hazard good guesses, right? So you're absolutely right. The vision of AI that we had, which was sort of 2001: A Space Odyssey type of thing. Instead, especially these new generative AIs, I think the correct model to think about them is like a bright teenager next door. Yeah. So it's a teenager. There could be some teenagers are good at math. Some are really good at maybe drawing. So they're impressive. You're like, oh, the kid next door, little Johnny. It's really impressive how good he can draw. But of course, the problem is little Johnny may be helpful, may not be helpful. Totally depends on whatever. And also, little Johnny may be lying through his teeth. We don't know what any of the if any of this stuff is true or not.
Right.
So we're living. You're absolutely right. The correct model is there are entities in the world out there. Some of these entities are humans. Some of them are not humans. They are AIs. Any of them could be lying. Any of them could be doing something useful. And it's really up to us as humans, as people who interact with these entities, to really figure out who is what and which of these entities we want to trust.
So I guess what I was really applying to in that question was the use cases of AI wasn't just total domination or like a total takeover of computers or whatever, but it seems as though it's just niching down onto how do I make my life easier? How do I edit a paper? How do I do research? How do I make something for social media? How do I increase my clout? And now we're going to, again, like I said, more human kind of structures of what kind of news am I going to make to trick people, or how is this going to emphasize the news? And so these this human building blocks that we're starting from with AI just seems almost just to enhance the human experience instead of creating this new, I guess, artificial intelligent experience. Does that just perpetuate in the future, or does the AI just grow to maybe say a futuristic movie, maybe like where you're downloading to a surrogate and the surrogate is like, part of your AI, or you're like getting implants or something, is just to enhance the human experience? Or are we going to move it to a different way? And yeah, I am kind of asking a interesting future question that you would never be able to predict where it's going to go. But I kind of want to see like what you're thinking when it comes to the developments, and do we just actually keep niching down on enhancing the human experience?
To answer that question, let me sort of set some historical context, right? So first, there's a huge explosion in AI-related services, thanks to recent chatbots that have been launched. But actually, AI for business, AI use cases for business have been around for at least 20 years. I started my first AI company 20 years ago where we were solving these types of problems for business use cases, right? For businesses that wanted to do face recognition, for businesses that wanted to do automatic image tabulation and so on. We launched the first face recognition engine on Facebook in 2006, right? So the stuff has been around for a long time. This is not new. That's point number one, right? And in the business world, what people have been doing is taking a problem that business has and then saying, well, what is the best AI out there for this? And let's see how we can solve the problem. Right? Now, what has happened recently and what has sort of captured the imagination is that for the first time, these same things that have been available to businesses for the past many, many years are all of a sudden now available to the public for generic use cases. Used to be that I would have to make a very specialized product for a very specialized application and give it to someone. Now it's like, well, would you like to write an essay? Here you go. Right. So now, to answer your question, the iterative cycle of how much these things will improve will continue. But my prediction, if I had to make one, would be that actually, rather than a generic AI that will try to write essays and will try to make drawings and will try to describe something and will try to solve computer coding problems, you actually emerge with specific use cases and specific AIs that are good at that task. The big problem that AI has right now is, especially these generic AIs, people aren't talking about this stuff, but they're not explainable, right? You don't know. It's like a human, right? If I asked you, why do you think, or who was the first person that told you honesty is the best policy? Most people cannot answer that question, right? With most of these AIs, if you ask it, like I actually asked ChatGPT the other day to describe me, and it told me a whole bunch of things about me that just aren't true, right? It just made these things up, right? It said I had worked at JP Morgan and Citibank. I'd never in my life worked at a bank, right? So and it cannot answer technically these types of transformer-based models that have billions of parameters. They actually cannot tell you how they arrived at a conclusion, right? And that's really where the challenge lies. If you want to make this thing really useful, if you want me to decide whether or not Matthew will get a surgery, right? Matthew needs a surgery. Well, ChatGPT says so. Why? Why does Matthew need a surgery? That's really where I think things get interesting in the future, is where we get these very targeted, specific AIs that are good at solving problems in a explainable way.
So what it sounds like you're saying right here is the future, or at least the near future of AI, is almost kind of like the Apple App Store, where niche apps came out and focused on this specific thing that you wanted to do. If it was Yelp to go find a good restaurant and see which one is in the reviews, that app and that product came out that niched down into that. If you wanted to fix your grammar, Grammarly came out and it niched down into grammar. And so it sounds like what you're saying. Instead of this Chat GPT with this whole broad range and spectrum of things that it can do, it's people are going to start taking this and actually perfect the technology to niche down on these certain tasks, and then you'll have this AI maybe with the ability to get the why at the end. It's like, why are you saying this? We'll have a little more data because they're able to extract that data, which is, every data source is broad. If you're talking about, like you said, surgery, if we're talking about just knee surgery, the data sources you can extract from and cite are massive. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to niche down to get that why. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. So the use cases have to become sharper, and the AIs have to be so good that someone can depend on it. Right? That's why I called it today's AI like teenagers, because they're super useful, they're super cool. Sometimes they can be impressive, but they're not reliable. And you want you and I both, right? We want AIs to help us that are reliable, dependable.
So with that reliability, you're going to need a lot of data, like we just said. And so it's great when you're talking about data sources that are open source, for example, college journals and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. But what we're seeing is AI extracting the stuff that we did not think was going to be open sourced. My Facebook page. So if we're gonna make make a spoof of Elon Musk or who are public figures, so it's a little different, but Elon Musk or the Pope, it's a different conversation than being able to spoof almost anybody or create something that is kind of open source, a global open source system database out of thin air. And we're talking about writing like certain authors, we're talking about making music like certain people, and so on and so forth. Where even though we're going to niche down on that when it comes to creativity and when it comes to the evolution of AI, where does the line get drawn where by this AI is going to know too much about me? Now, let's just say this, Naveen, when you asked ChatGPT about you, and you said, "Oh, everything was wrong," but what if it came back with everything that's right? I guess that's the question.
Sorry. So what's if it came back everything was right? What's your question?
My question is, would you be more offended that, or more scared that it came back with everything right than a lot of things wrong? I mean, what if it knew?
No.
What if it knew? What if it knew what you ate for breakfast yesterday?
Right. So first, if it got everything right, first of all, I would be actually very happy and very impressed, right? Because the first thing it should do is it should get right what a human would get right? So I have a 15-year-old.
Is that a looking at the data sort of thing as a privacy issue, like saying, "Oh, I'm happy that is that looking at it like from a AI standpoint of like, oh, it got the data right, so I'm happy for the AI," or is that more of like an ego thing, like you should know who I am? Because there's both those things in play.
No, it's definitely the former, right? So so some of the things that we're asking the AI to do today, these chatbot type AIs to do, are the things that historically we would ask some junior person to do, right? So we would say, well, maybe our junior analyst is going to make the first draft of this presentation. Well, ChatGPT will do it, right? And maybe ChatGPT will do an okay job, and then I'll review it or something, right? So the answer to the question is absolutely. It would be super impressive to me if it actually collected the data and put it together in the proper way. The second thing is actually the trend now is going to be that sites will begin to lock themselves down against ChatGPT, and not because of privacy reasons. It's actually because of commercial reasons, right? So this is a big problem that is happening. Google,
Right.
for example, would crawl, and I wrote my first websites in the early 90s where we would actually specifically allow and make things easy for Alta Vista and InfoSeek and Google to crawl, because we wanted people to be able to search us. We wanted to get that traffic, right? ChatGPT will crawl us and will never send us a damn thing in terms of traffic. So I actually derive no benefit from the fact that ChatGPT crawled my website, right? If I'm a publisher, ChatGPT will crawl me and will make some conclusions, and people will pay ChatGPT. They won't give me a dime. I don't like that. So now I'm going to actually actively stop ChatGPT and open sort of AIs of this order to come crawl my website, because I actually want to capitalize on my data, right? And that brings me to the second point, which is really what happens from now on is that data is king, right? So as an AI researcher or as an ex-AI researcher, I can tell you that these types of transformer-based models, the best models that Facebook has are quite similar to the best models that Microsoft has, and quite similar to the best models that OpenAI has or Google has, right? So if you give them the same data, these models will produce roughly similar outputs. So really, the game becomes that of data. What extra data do you have? And that will make you, going back to the topic of making specialized AIs, that's really what's going to help you make the best AIs, if you have the best data, right? So you can actually see this. So that from both those standpoints, if you have data, you are king. If you have specialized content, if you have specialized sort of information around how something happened or shouldn't happen, or the good, the bad types of whatever, that's totally valuable, and you will start capitalizing on that.
So it seems to me that you are more concerned about the monetization of your work than the privacy of your data.
Both, but yes, see, as academic scientists, we like to create, so scientists are not too concerned about privacy, right? We are the default is to publish our work anyways, right?
Right.
The sort of the privacy-seeking data obviously needs to be private, But that's really a more, and that brings me to sort of what I think is where the world heads, right? Which is, and you were saying this earlier, there are these AIs that are spoofing things. There are these AIs that are making things up, either maliciously or accidentally, right? How will you tell? How will you decide who to trust? And I think that's really where things become interesting. So if I had to make a prediction, I would say that trust becomes really important, right? So trust has an interesting journey. So we in the 19, I mean, you're pretty young, but in the 1980s, we used to live in a world of where we trusted everyone that we interacted with. We had these we only spoke people to most people face to face. There were some landline phones or whatever, and there were some media companies, and we trusted everyone, rightly or wrongly, right? And when we moved into the internet, we kind of took that trust with us into the internet, right? So we basically started trusting these websites. We basically started believing that these websites were at least benign, if not actually useful, right? And I think where even without AI, where we've come to now is the realization that actually not all of it can be trusted anyways. It's all unreliable, right? It's all so we have to build networks of trust. And that actually, I think, is one of the killer use cases of blockchain technology, right? That's the real crypto, which is cryptography, not cryptocurrency, which is how do we use cryptography to create networks of trust where we know who to believe. I will believe this because Matthew has signed this content and Matthew stands behind it, something like that, you know? But trust, I think, becomes very important in an increasingly AI-driven world.
Okay, so one really quick question off of that is, can AI live on the blockchain then? So I was talking to somebody previous to this about ID and verification of how do you make sure that that what you said is that you're getting credit for your work, you're getting credit for your publications, your music, or what have you. And I was talking to identity.com the other day, and they were saying, like, well, we have to embed your, I guess, credentials, your ID, your fingerprint, some kind of digital signature. And I think he said that I think people should log into the internet with this same credential. This should be your master key to anything digital. And so that will create this whole idea of trust and verification that this individual is exactly this individual. But how does AI live on the blockchain? If AI is actually going to be taking on a mind of its own, how can AI realistically live in a blockchain or utilize blockchain for this trust?
Absolutely, absolutely. The answer is yes. Well, my answer is yes, right? Because remember, I said in my world, in the world that I'm imagining, AIs and humans are sort of coexisting in this world where you decide who to trust. You can trust a human, you can trust an AI, you can trust a company, you can trust any one of a number of actors, right? And an AI presents itself to you on chain. Just let's keep running with your analogy, right? An AI presents itself to you, and now you can decide whether or not to trust it. It's okay. You can be like, well, this is a very trustworthy AI. I've been using it for 3 years now. It always does a great job. I don't know, creating images for me, right? Great. It's a great AI. Or you can be like, well, I don't know this AI, or I don't know this human. They sound like somebody scary. Last time I checked, their activity made them sound a little bit extremist, and I don't like this human, and I don't like this AI. Right? So it's okay.
Let me stop you there though, because what you're expressing is my feelings about it, and my feelings about an AI that I used for 3 years, or my feelings that it was saying something extremist. It doesn't matter, and that's what the blockchain comes in, right? Because I don't care how my feelings are about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is always going to be trusted because of the mechanisms within the Bitcoin blockchain network. I'm never going to question how it comes to consensus, and so taking feelings out, I guess what I'm asking is, can AI be integrated into blockchain in a way that is inherent to, say, Bitcoin or the Ethereum network, where consensus is the mechanism of trust?
So you're absolutely right that you don't trust Bitcoin. You don't have to trust Bitcoin because it's a definitive thing, right? That the transfer of Bitcoin happened or didn't happen. I guess where I'm coming from is these are AIs, or these are entities that are expressing opinions. They are creating content, right? The content was created by a human or was created by an AI, right? Now, I as a human can decide to trust it or not trust it. That's an opinion that I will express. I trust this person because I grew up with this person. I've known Matthew for 25 years. I love Matthew. I'm going to trust what Matthew is going to say, right? I don't know Matthew. First time ever I've spoken to him today. I don't know. So when something on the other side is a definitive thing, like a transaction, that's okay. But I'm talking about entities that are expressing opinions, entities that are putting out content, right? And that content you either believe and trust or you don't. And we as humans have to decide that, and we have to build our own trust networks in terms of who do we believe. Like if somebody is posting a video content clip that says CNN in the thing and Pope wearing a Balenciaga outfit, do we believe it? Who is it? How do we decide? That's kind of where I'm going with that. Yeah. So it's not really that the AI is living on. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I understand that actually. And that goes back to, I think, probably around 2017, 2018. There's a lot of decentralized protocols that came out that were trying to figure out how to create trusted networks out of things like that, of media, opinions, journalism, and so on and so forth. And it came back to a group consensus mechanism of like more of a social thing where it's like, how many people can verify that this is, and the more people that can verify that this is factual, the more factual it's going to be. Just like any kind of proof of work consensus mechanism, but in a personal term. And so it seems like that's what you're alluding to is a AI network that is using a human consensus mechanism of how much trust is in any given thing that they put out. And the more people that can verify the facts that these AI is coming up with, the more factual it could be, or that's what I'm hearing.
Yes. You're mostly right. Except it's how do we build consensus is up to us. Do we use humans only, or do we use humans plus AI? But rather
Okay.
than that, I would say we use trusted actors, right? So as a random aside, in 2010, we launched a lending company sort of internationally, where that's what our model was. Our model was you're a trusted borrower, so if three trusted borrowers introduce a new person, we'll give them a loan. No credit history required, no background check needed, right? Three people were
Right.
saying, or N people were saying, Matthew's a great guy, we'll give Matthew a loan, right? So that was sort of us putting our money where our mouth is, right? And I really think that this is where I think this is sort of a killer use case for blockchain, because that's public key cryptography. So we tried to do this in the 90s. Some sort of I was part of this fringe group of people that would like try to make a public key pair. I had a website that had my public key on it. Like all of this sort of stuff that seemed outlandish back then. But now with Ethereum and these things, there's a public blockchain. All of us have public keys. All of us have private keys, and it's an easy system for us to present ourselves in a way such that we can all trust each other and decide what that network looks like.
Last question. AI in 100 years. And I know I can see in you that you hate this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. 100 years is too much. AI in 20 years. AI in 20 years, because I don't even know if we know the future, but what does it look like? Does it look like that? Yeah, I mean, the way that I'm looking at it is that we're just going to have seamless enhancements of everything that we use, from our laptops to our cell phones to our Google Maps and something like that. That AI is going to understand more of what we want innately, and almost be able to predict where we're going, what we want, how we want the information given to us, and basically integrate themselves into our lives. And that's going to come out with products as well. It might not be a handheld cell phone, but maybe these new Apple glasses or whatever is going to come out and integrate all of this into a smarter, predictive product that basically learns through either AI learning or machine learning what our lives are about, and then integrates itself. It makes itself such a niche product that I and my glasses or I and my phone are almost a symbiotic relationship. It almost is now, but more so where I can't live without my phone, more so that I can't live without my wife. Like my phone knows me better than my family. That's the way I'm thinking in 20 years that this could play out. What is your predictions for the 20 years?
I am largely in line with your prediction, right? Which is the correct way to think about it is I think instead of thinking what will AI do, broadly you have to say what will technology do, and you're absolutely right. Technology is about sort of integrating what is inside us to what is outside us. And as this technology becomes better, it does a better and better job of taking what's outside and bringing it inside, and taking what's inside and bringing it outside, right? So I heard some professor argue the other day that your phone is actually a very valid extension of your brain. Yeah? Even though it's physically outside, actually, logically, it's a lot better extension of your brain than these glasses are, right? Because it actually has the same type of data. It's extending the functionality of our brain in many interesting ways. So that's what AI is. So I would repeat what you said, except saying that really AI becomes an extension of our brain, which is what I'm trying to say by saying it's both inwards and outwards.
That's a very interesting statement, because a lot of people said that that's what your relationships were. If you were in a relationship with a spouse for 20, 30, 40 years, your spouse actually started to inherit some of the information that you did not inherit yourself. So that's why spouses, when they talk to each other, they kind of look at each other to try to get that information. Oh, honey, where was that one day? This person is actually tasked in the relationship to have the knowledge of the places, the dates, the names, while this other person has the knowledge of the other things that are. So you kind of like decentralize the knowledge in a relationship, and that's kind of how it naturally evolves. So I agree with you that the cell phones and the technology now is an extension of your brain. It's only going to be more and more, I guess, codependent or symbiotic relationship. I don't know if it's codependent or, yeah, I would say codependent probably, relationship with your technology. Very interesting conversation. Naveen, I want to say thank you very much for coming on the show and talking and exploring this conversation with me. I think more things are going to come up in the future when it comes to AI, and I hope that you would like to come back on and talk about it.
Absolutely, my great pleasure. And let us know. I think it's a super exciting journey. I'm very sort of eager to see where it goes as an AI professional and as a blockchain professional. Like I said, I think blockchain has an important role here, and we want to see what we can do with this. This is great. It's been great being on this on your podcast. Thank you so much for thinking of me.
Absolutely, sir, and enjoy Singapore.
Thank you.